Hello, everyone. We are live. Well, I am live and always waiting for Facebook and YouTube to catch up. I know that there's always a joke, and you guys in the chat are always like taking bets as to how late I'm going to be. Usually it's because my time management is really bad and I'm like last minute pulling up articles or fixing my hair or something. But funny story, I think this is funny. So I'm just going to tell you guys right off the bat. Oh, Zach is here! Zach, hi! Sorry, I got really excited. I love Zach. Zach is one of my old Massachusetts BFFs who's now in Florida and also escaped. But so funny story. First, I was getting ready to come upstairs, and you guys know I have my big drink. And today it is bubbly water. And pregnancy brain is a thing. And I really genuinely thought I had rinsed all of the soap out of my cup. And in fact, I had not. And I put in my bubbly drink and it filled with soap suds. And then I was like, wait, is this really soap? Is this fizz? And I couldn't figure out. And I had to have my husband like smell it and taste it. And yeah, it was a cup of soap suds. So that had to get fixed. And then I came up here and went to sign in, and my mic fell apart in 3 places. But I'm here now. So hello, everyone. I am here. I got my intro from Trashman ahead of time. And then we'll jump into everyone who's in the chat and all of that fun stuff. So apparently a storm is rolling in where Trashman is. So he sent me the intro over on Patreon, and it reads, live from the state Horrible Harris tried to push vaccines in. It's the lady who doesn't punish the innocent for crime, knows that you go to the worst spots on the border to get the big picture, and may or may not have been to Europe. And with these compelling qualifications, or more compelling qualifications than a certain someone in office, here's Dolly, because apparently I can't even read properly right now. So hello, thank you, Trashman. And no, Robert Graham, there is no booze in my bubbly drink. There's never booze in any of my drinks, but also that is not good for growing babies, which I currently am. I announced that last week in the stream, and I will be making a big channel-wide across all social media announcement soon. I just want to also plug my other channel in it and have enough videos on the other channel with which to do that. Oh, and I better make sure that this is even picking up the correct microphone. And yes, it is. People are saying I need a new mic. The mic itself is not the problem. It's the boom arm. And I actually went looking for a little stand, like a stand to put in front of me to do that. And the cord that plugs into the mic and the computer is embedded in this boom arm. And you can't buy the cord separately, and you can't buy a stand separately without buying a whole new mic. So I might end up just having to do that. I don't know. But let's see who's in. So we have Rose Blight in. We have Tim Allen, Ginger Monkey Bear. We have Wandering Stew. We have Q, Tim Allen, Tim Allen, I just said that. Talisman. We have Nomad 0036. We have B Yes in California. Larry Hutton. We have Robert Graham, Jesse Sowell, Michael J. P. Taylor, Frosty Leprechaun, Jameson Wilfon, Russell, just Russell. I love it when it's these people that just have like one name. I don't know. I think it's funny. I like it. Larry Hutton, Leonidas Alberia. Let's see. Hugh Galbraith is in. Ta-da. P. Taylor, Tristan Goodrich. We have James Parsons, Donald Bumbarger, James, California. Oh, I hope that doesn't mean that you live in California. If you do, that is very sad. And that makes me sad. Robert Chappelle, De Pluribus Unum. Carolina Infidel, Great Sky Troll Anti-Drama. Let's see. I Love Moen. Dave Simmons, Jesse Meek, Bruce the Boss, Jonathan Stevie, and Zach, of course. Michael Clark, Robert Graham, Matthew Beverly, Benjamin Shulnick, A Cyclone Steve, Doug Reed. Let's scroll down to the bottom here. Mark Fallos, my goodness, thank you. Thank you for the big donation. Says, please check out Hero John Hurley in Arvada, Colorado 2 days ago, who stopped active shooter. Yes. I'm actually, I did not know his name. And that was one of the things that I wanted to talk about today. So thank you. That's going to make it a lot easier to look up. Let's see. We'll pick, it's like I want to find an article that's not going to be like an NBC, ABC, blah, blah, blah. We'll go with the Denver Post and see how that goes here. And maybe Mercury News. They're usually okay. Okay, Kimberly Harris DuBois is in from Facebook and says that she used to play Xbox with the trash man. Jeff Anderson is also in from Facebook and says that there are storms in the Texas Panhandle. Zach says that reading is too much work, and sometimes it is. And Owl's Eyes Sees, thank you also for the donation. It's not showing up what it is, but I'm guessing that it is a super sticker. If I go over to this other window, I'll be able to see if it's a super sticker. Yes, it is. Thank you. And oh my goodness, thank you, Tony, for also the super sticker. Oh, it's so cute. It's a little flag that says number 1. Jesse says that, hi, Dolly, YouTube is being a brat again. As is tradition, my friend. Robert Chappelle says, booze is terrible for growing babies, but can be very helpful in making them. And Robin says, late or not, we still love you. Thank you. All right. So today is going to be a whole bunch of Second Amendment news because I wrote out a Liberty Minute video, and I am hoping to actually record it tonight after this and get it out to you guys. Hopefully tomorrow. We'll see, because we have some visitors coming tomorrow. But as you'll see when that video gets out, as I remark in like the little opening thing, this week was a really weird week for news. Like the news that was just happening was very strange. And I don't know how I feel about it. I guess it's interesting, but it was just weird headlines and weird news stories this week. But what was not weird is like there's a plethora of gun control stuff that came out this week. Biden's weird talks and press conferences where he mentioned gun control. He's basically, his administration is going after Missouri and their Second Amendment Preservation Act, and there's all kinds of gun-related, Second Amendment-related news out this week, and so we're going to talk about that. And today, I am repping Palmetto State Armory, so do not be fooled by the fact that this t-shirt says ATF. This was gifted to me, actually, by one of the viewers and one of my subscribe stars, so thank you. So the front says ATF, and the back, let's see if I can, all the firearms. I saw this shirt and had to have it. It is from Palmetto State Armory, and so there is a link down in the description. If you look down, forget if it says like supporting partners or whatever it says, but if you scroll down and use the Palmetto State Armory link that's down there, you can click on that and do your regular Palmetto State shopping, and it will help out the channel. The channel does get a little bit of a kickback anytime you use one of my links. And they have all kinds of really cool shirts up there right now. This is one of them. They had a Boog Boy shirt. At one point, they have a No Step on Snake shirt. They have some really good shirts that come out of Palmetto State Armory, and I check them out every couple of months to see any new ones that I'm missing. So they always have some good stuff. So, all right. Well, since we have so many Second Amendment and gun control related things this week, so let's see, where would we like to start? Well, let's go. Someone mentioned John Hurley, so we will jump into John Hurley. Denver Post is making me turn off my ad blocker, so 1 second. There we go. All right. So this story, I know the basics of it. I've seen the memes. I've seen a bunch of infographics and stuff about it, but I haven't actually read one of these stories yet. So that part we will be discovering together. It's a really sad story, and it's interesting because it is a story of a good guy with a gun, but a lot of the pro-gun control people are really using it as an example of why we shouldn't trust gun owners and why people shouldn't own guns. So this story, Johnny Hurley, hailed by police as true hero, shot Old Town Arvada gunman, witness says. Witness recounts Samaritan's courageous acts. I want to make sure that family knows how heroic he was. And so he also was, I believe, a staff member or a former staff member, at least, of We Are Change, which is a really great organization. They do a lot of news stories and activism, and I think that Facebook nuked them at one point, so you can really only get their content from their website at this point, I believe. But if anyone watches Tim Pool, this is Luke's organization, and Luke is awesome, and the organization is awesome. And back in the day, that is where I got a lot of my news. And they covered all kinds of things that other outlets weren't covering. So anyways, so this is the article. Bill Troyanos was working his normal shift at the Army-Navy surplus store in Old Town Arvada on Monday when he heard a pop, then another, and another. He moved to the door, peered outside, and saw a gunman across the town plaza. Then a customer, a 40-year-old man he'd never met, put his hand on his hip, drew a pistol, and quickly rushed towards the plaza, Troyanos said. Standing in the doorway, Troyanos, a former chef, watched as the stranger, identified by police and family as Johnny Hurley, used a brick wall on the corner of the Arvada Library as cover. When the gunman came back towards the plaza, that's when Hurley opened fire on him, Troyanos told the Denver Post on Wednesday. I did see him shoot the gunman. With people in the store yelling for him to lock the door and take cover, Troyanos moved away from the horrific scene, never seeing how the man, now being cast as a hero, took his fatal blow. I would like to know how Hurley got shot, Troyanos said, adding that he later saw Hurley being carried away on a stretcher. It's a question that Hurley's family and friends are still asking 2 days later as they celebrate the life of an individual who they described as a true freethinker, an iconoclast, and an idealist who challenged assumptions and conventional wisdom, a man who could debate without ruining friendships and cook up a mean meal from just about anything. Police have released scant information on Wednesday's shooting, which occurred in broad daylight and left 3 people dead, including Hurley, a veteran police officer, and the gunman. Troyanos' account is the first to shed light on how a man shopping for outdoor gear might have saved innocent lives, since authorities have not yet said how Hurley died, how he intervened, or how the gunman was killed. So this actually, I had heard about this story, but I had heard about another story where someone stopped a couple of shoplifters and was holding them at gunpoint as sort of like a citizen's arrest until the cops showed up, and the cops showed up, saw somebody with a gun, and shot them. That was the story that I was thinking of. that is going all over the internet as an example of why people should not be allowed to own guns. But I thought that I had heard that this guy was also shot by the police, but I could be wrong. We will keep reading to see. So the Arvada police detective David Snelling said Wednesday evening that an Arvada officer is on administrative leave while the Jefferson County Critical Incident Response Team investigates the shooting. The team, composed of officers from multiple agencies, and typically investigates when an officer fires their weapon and injures or kills someone. Let's see. The Arvada police in a Wednesday afternoon. Okay, yeah, Mark Fallow says that Hurley was killed by first responders on accident. Okay, so that's that. I was correct in that assumption then. So that is 2 people in the last week or two that tried to be good Samaritans and do the right thing and got shot by police, which is really unfortunate. So Arvada police in a Wednesday afternoon news release acknowledged the unanswered questions surrounding the shooting, but said we have not completed all of the witness interviews and we are waiting on forensic evidence. They said that we hope in the next few days to have all of this information. We promise to provide that to our citizens. We owe a thorough and complete review of the incident to the families. Police on Wednesday did confirm that the gunman, Ronald Troik, 59, of Arvada, left a note threatening to harm law enforcement officers. The sheriff on Tuesday had announced that the county's critical incident response team was conducting a separate investigation into the shooting. Following the investigation, the district attorney will make a recommendation on whether an officer acted in an appropriate manner when firing their weapon. And the police officers in Arvada do not wear body cameras. The official website says that they've begun the process to institute those cameras, which will be mandated before 2023 as a result of a 2020 law that was signed in by the governor. But they're not there yet. Let's see. And then here's little info on Hurley. He grew up in Colorado Springs, went to culinary school, loved the outdoors, testing out survival skills, camping and snowshoeing. Let's see. And that's all that it says about that. So what day is this article from? So this was from the 23rd. So this is 2 days ago. And this one is from the 25th. Yes, here we go. So this is an update to the story. So he was, in fact, killed by a police officer's bullet. Police credited him with saving lives when he fired back at a shooter. So he did fire back at the active shooter and was killed by a police officer, a source familiar with the investigation confirmed on Thursday. So he died, it says, after the ambush that killed an Arvada police officer on Monday afternoon. And it says how he had been in the outdoor store or the Army-Navy surplus store, drew a pistol and rushed outside to try to stop the gunman. And the gunman was killed. The police have not said who fired the shots that killed either the gunman or Hurley, so we just have this anonymous source that says they are familiar with the investigation, confirming that he was shot at by the police. Let's see. And then the rest of it is kind of just stuff that was in that last article. Investigators have released little information overall. It says they have not yet said what the original 911 call of a, quote, suspicious incident was, or explained how the shooting played out in the busy restaurant and shopping district. In the first hours after the shooting, Arvada police said that 2 possible suspects were down, but later that evening said that 1 suspect and a Samaritan were dead. along with Beasley, a 19-year veteran of the police department. And again, they say that the gunman did leave a note threatening to harm law enforcement officers. So that is the update from today, from this morning, and that seems to be the latest information on this story. So it will be interesting. I mean, someone familiar with the investigation and another, anonymous source, which you can't always trust, but I mean, it does seem likely in this situation. They say that it was the police that accidentally shot him, or maybe not accidentally if they thought that he was involved in the scuffle. But we also had, like I said, there was a story that came out earlier in the week, as well as someone stopped a couple of shoplifters and were holding them at gunpoint, waiting for the police to arrive. And the police showed up and shot the guy because the police officer saw a guy just holding some people at gunpoint. So that might be a situation where, I mean, you don't want to say that people shouldn't get involved, but you have to be really careful of those situations. If you see the cops approaching, then, hold up your gun, hold up your hands, put the gun down, something like that. You see that a lot when they, in the videos and educational materials of like how to deal with the police while you are also a concealed carrier. I'm guessing that person did not do that, but it's very sad either way. I guess it's a lesson in picking and choosing your battles. So we have that. I see there's a few super chats that have come in. We'll check those out and move into the next things. Robin says, I don't own any guns, just a lot of lead and copper accelerators. Joe Marisol, thank you for the big donation, says for a new mirror so you can see your feet. I do in fact not own a floor-length mirror. And also I can still see my feet at this point, but I know that inevitably we're going to get to a point that is not going to happen. I know that everyone carries differently and babies grow differently, but I have a friend who's currently, she's 9 weeks ahead of me, I think. So she's like 24 weeks pregnant, and like she sent me a picture, and my baby belly is as big as hers is right now. So already had to go shopping in the maternity department and everything. So it's not far away, I'm sure. Let's see. Jesse Sowell, thank you for the sticker. I'll jump over to this window so I can actually see what it is. Oh, it's one of I never know if this is like a little pear or what it is. But thank you. Let's see. Tada says, that's a risk you take, being a good guy with a gun. If you aren't willing to take that risk, you shouldn't be carrying. Well, I mean, I don't know if I would say that, it's a responsibility and a risk you take just by carrying, and you should be prepared to take that risk. I think that it's a risk in and of itself at times to carry, because things could happen and you could find yourself involved in a situation. But I would say it's more a risk of like getting involved in that situation and deciding whether or not you want to take responsibility to get involved in a situation like Hurley did, going and trying to stop an active shooter, or like the other person going and trying to hold some shoplifters at gunpoint and wait for the cops. I mean, because if you look at, I guess you have to look at the cost benefit ratio there. If you stop an active shooter, I mean, even if you go down in the process, I mean, you are definitely like potentially saving lives, and you don't know how many lives you're saving. Something like stopping a couple of shoplifters, I mean, it'll make the shoplifters get prosecuted depending what state you're in, because not all states really prosecute. California, now anything under $950 is just considered a misdemeanor, for example. So yeah, you can, stop these shoplifters so they can get prosecuted, and the store can maybe recuperate some of their losses, but you're not saving lives. So I guess you really need to ask yourself, are you willing to die for, to stop an active shooter, versus are you willing to die for shoplifters? I think that's the real question in these scenarios, honestly. Let's see. Michael J says the cop was reckless, and Freddie Rogan. Oh, are you the Fred that I am meeting tomorrow, sir? If you are, then hello. Says, quote, shoot first, ask questions later. Yeah, unfortunately, that is a reality of a lot of police officer interactions. And sometimes I don't want to say they're right, because I don't know if they should necessarily be judge, jury, and executioner, depending on the situation. If I was in some of their situations, I absolutely would shoot first and ask questions later. I'm not going to lie. If it comes down between, someone who's trying to hurt me and me, let's be real. But sometimes that shoot first and ask questions later is not the correct answer. A Cyclone Steve says, here's my $50 donation. Oh, wait. Well, thank you anyways, A Cyclone Steve. Every little bit counts, honestly. Hank of the Hill says that cops should do more GD recon. Situational awareness is important, just like critical thinking. That's true. I mean, I suppose depending on the situation, there might not be time to do that. I don't know. A-Dub says, muffin blue line. Johnny B says, oh, snap. Thanks for all you do. Well, thanks for watching, and thanks for the super chat. Let's see. Jameson Wilfon says, we'll be watching Spicy Friday after Liberty Doll. Let's see. Mark Fallow says, thank you, doll. Well, thank you, sir. Carrix the Tall says, fair warning, you have 6 months to buy diapers. I suggest starting now. We started actually after the first ultrasound and confirmation of a heartbeat. We waited that long because of our unfortunate previous experience. But we already have a couple boxes, but I know it really depends on how fast baby grows. So we only have a couple boxes, but we do have a year's supply of baby wipes. That was my husband was like, well, they're also good for prepping. So we got a Sam's Club order one day, and I now know what 9,000, almost 10,000 baby wipes looks like. Robert Chappelle says, what I want to know is what is in the water in Colorado that makes them also crazy. I don't know. There's a lot of hippies in Colorado too. So I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe we can have some kind of experiment, and people from Colorado can check in. And yes, Fred. Okay, well, hello again. I will be meeting you tomorrow. I have heard lots of good things. Q says, a cop has chosen a job that puts them in danger. That, my friend, is a bingo. They should have a much greater requirement on knowing the situation than a normal person. I would agree with that. Honestly, I think that, unfortunately, and this is going to get spicy, folks, there's going to be someone that is not going to like this in the chat, or someone later on in the comments that is not going to like this, but this is a fact. So I understand why veterans get a precedence, or why they get preferential placement when going into law enforcement careers. Like, it makes sense. They already have a bunch of the training. They already know how to work with the firearms, all of that. It totally makes sense why they would get preferential treatment in getting into the academy, during the exams. All of that makes total sense. I also understand that they undergo extensive interview processes and mental health evaluations, psychiatric evaluations, all of that. I do understand all of that. But I also know, because I have worked with these people in my career, and I also have known some people that went on to become police officers from their time in the Army and the Marines and all of that. Yeah, we got a lot of folks in the police department that are veterans that definitely have PTSD, and they have PTSD from their times when they were deployed and in danger, and then now they're in a job where they are in danger and have heightened senses of danger and hypervigilance. And it seems to me like it could potentially be a really bad combination sometimes. And then even people that aren't veterans, that have just been on the force for X amount of time and are put in these situations, or find themselves in these situations where they're in danger and being shot at, especially like at drug raids and things like that. I mean, that is like the most unsafe situation for all parties involved. And, they get used to that, and they get used to being, perpetually in like this heightened state of awareness and heightened state of stress. And it can lead to some problems. And I think that might be one of the contributing factors that we see in some of the incidents. I'm not saying necessarily in this incident, or the one with the shoplifters. I mean, that's something, a cop rolls up and sees someone pointing a gun at people. Depending on what the 911 call was and the information they have, yes, there should be more questions asked and more situational awareness. But I think that there's a lot of factors that come into some of these situations and some of the decisions that are made. Jellybean says that 10,000 won't be enough. Probably not, but David Neal says that military trains and retrains, and so should the cops. That is also a valid point. I don't know how often cops retrain. I think that, isn't there don't they have to periodically do a shooting test or something? I don't really know. Chester Thomas says that grats on becoming a Liberty mom, and kudos for having awesome journalism skills. #1 channel on YouTube. Oh, thank you. That is super sweet. I wish that I had the brain capacity to dedicate as much time to it now as I used to. This doesn't work the way that it did 4 months ago. I'm telling you. It's tough. God Blessed America argues that there is no water in Colorado. Lake Powell is drying up. So, I mean, I guess we can't blame it on there being something in the water. Kbold41 says, Liberty Lad and Liberty Miss will make excellent sidekick names. Congratulations again. Enjoy. Thank you. Thank you. Jesse Meek says, as a former cop, I didn't even know that you were a former cop. You learn something every day. I feel like you're too nice and jolly and happy to be a former cop. That's terrible to say. But most of the ones that I have met are really unhappy people. So, I mean, I guess I'm glad that you escaped that trait. Anyways, Jesse says, as a former cop, the training is geared to always protect yourself first because you can't aid anyone if you're dead. And if you die, your firearm is possibly in bad guys' hands. I'm just explaining, not agreeing. I mean, that does make sense. I mean, I think that in any emergency scenario, they tell people cops are not to protect yourself first because you can't help if you are dead. Even when they say the little emergency shtick when you go on an airplane, put your oxygen mask on first and then help other people. It's because you can't help other people if you are suffocating from lack of oxygen. So, I mean, that is a really good point. Mike Fawbush says that most police are trained incorrectly and have the wrong training. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know that like police training is supposed to be really like hush hush and outsiders aren't really supposed to know about it. And I do know some things, but I feel like if I reveal the things that I know, then I would potentially be getting the people that told me in trouble. So some of the training is messed up. I will say that. Like they put some of these folks through the ringer, and man, it's some of the stuff I've heard, like I don't know. It's like mean. Mark Fallow says, hey, wait, I'm in Colorado, and vet, I'm on the road. Peace, so I guess I'm all of the above. LOL. Oh, no. Oh, no. Nothing personal, friend. Jameson Wilfon says, my agency requires at least 40 hours of in-service training every year. Oh, that's good to know. It's interesting. That's the same amount that it requires to maintain my therapy license. Interesting. Though in my case, it's always like bare bones, basic, blah, blah, blah. Omega says, see, I thought this. So thank you for the confirmation. Says, police must qualify with their guns annually, depending on unit type in the Army. He's a vet. You may qualify quarterly, and retraining is weekly. Oh, interesting. Okay. Good to know. That is very good to know. See, I thought that, but then you also hear about like those guys that like somehow shoot their foot while their gun is in their holster while they're like trying to demonstrate firearm safety or something. I see some people asking about my shirt. Yes, it says ATF, and then the back says all the firearms. So, and it's from Palmetto State Armory. So check out the link down in the description, and you can get one of these from Palmetto State. All right. So let's jump to the next. I guess we'll go to some of these stories in like the order of ridiculousness, right? So let's see. Let's go to Joe Biden. Joe Biden. All right, so Joe Biden released a fact sheet about crime and gun control and his plans to tackle crime. Along with it came a press conference, and we'll do the press conference first because it's just fun. And we have a video. We have a video of this little tidbit. And I don't remember if in this video, we'll play the video, and I don't remember where it starts, if it includes the full statement. So, and Gardner, this is actually from MRC TV, so that's funny. So hello, Gardner. We'll read his super chat first. He says, LD, congratulations. Celebrating your good news and missing you a year after your appearance at PorkFest. This is some extra love and a smile for the future from New Hampshire. We love you, kiddo. Thank you. Thank you. I know. I've been seeing the pictures of PorkFest, and I'm like, oh, that makes me sad that I'm not there. But getting to Porkfest would require going through Massachusetts, and right now, fuck that. It is still too soon. Too soon. All right, so let's check out this article here from MRC TV. Biden says Americans who own firearms to defend against tyranny will need F-15s and nuclear weapons to take on the government. And it includes a transcript and a video, and notes that some of the stuff that Biden says in this little clip we're going to play in a moment are things that he said before and have been fact-checked by PolitiFact, who deemed them very false, and yet they are talking points that he keeps on using over and over again. So let's check this out and try to not break the mic. Woo! Okay.
Conversation today, we talked about our strategy to supercharge what works while we continue to push the Congress to act on sensible gun violence legislation. First, we discussed cracking down, as you heard from the Attorney General, on rogue gun dealers. We know that if there is a strict enforcement of background checks, then fewer guns get into the hands of criminals. Background checks have thus far kept more than 3 million guns out of the hands of felons, convicted felons, fugitive, domestic abusers, and others prohibited from being able to purchase a gun. And there's still too many loopholes in that system. And today, enough rogue gun dealers feel like they can get away with selling guns to people who aren't legally allowed to own them. And I might add, the Second Amendment from the day it was passed limited the type of people who could own a gun and what type of weapon you could own. You couldn't buy a cannon. Those who say the blood of patriots, and all this stuff about how we're going to have to move against the government. Well, the tree of liberty is not water with the blood of patriots. What's happened is that there never been, if you wanted to think you need to have weapons to take on the government, you need F-15s and maybe some nuclear weapons. The point is that there's always been the ability to rationally limit the type of weapon that can be owned and who can own it.
Yeah, not quite, but A for effort, I suppose, not really. So there's a few problems with that. First of all, when he says, first of all, like I would really like to know what a rogue gun dealer is, and he has this assertion that like the only thing that stands between criminals and guns is the background check system that supposedly has all of these loopholes. I would like to know what those loopholes are, number one. And like, who are these like rogue gun dealers? And if there are rogue gun dealers making, I don't know, illegal sales or straw sales or something, then why aren't these supposed rogue gun dealers being shut down, for example? And okay, what about was it Fast and Furious where the US trafficked guns to Mexico, to the Mexican drug cartels? Remember how that was a thing? So, like, who is he talking about? Is he talking about the U.S. federal government? Because, he might be. And I just saw, as someone else said, or as Robin said, background checks, quote, background checks kept guns out of 3 million hands. Then why only 12 prosecutions? That is a good point. And she also says that she owns a cannon. So the cannon line is a line that has been used by Biden before and has been fact-checked by PolitiFact. And it turns out that no, there were never any rules or laws around owning cannons. And in fact, anyone in early colonial America could own a cannon, and I believe you still can own a cannon. So that is incorrect. When he talks about how there has always been rules about who was allowed and not allowed to own guns under the Second Amendment. Yes, Joe Biden, I believe that the group of people you're trying to think of the name is slaves. Yes, Joe Biden, the people who were not allowed to own arms in colonial America were slaves. You are talking once again about the black people, sir. The same ones that you always say aren't black and that don't know how to use the internet and don't have lawyers and accountants and don't properly know how to do their taxes. And yes, earlier this week, you also said that all Hispanic people are illegal immigrants. Yes, Joe Biden, those are the people that you are referring to when you say that there has always been classes of people who weren't allowed to own guns. Thanks, sir. And, when he talks about, first of all, when he says that you would need F-15s or nukes to take on the federal government, I laughed. I had to put Q's comment up on screen because it made me laugh. Said, "Hey, remember when JFK was nuked by an F-15?" Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about the folks during the Revolutionary War and how they fought the government and won. The Viet Cong called and also would beg to differ with Joe Biden's statement. How about every guerrilla fighter in all the Islamic countries in like Afghanistan and Iraq and Iran that has been taking on the U.S. Army for how long now? And we're still there because we haven't won? And if we leave, then the terrorists will take back over. If there's still people there to take back over, then I think they're doing a pretty decent job of taking on the U.S. Army and the U.S. government. I mean, come on. As someone mentioned earlier, like the U.S.-Mexican War, there are plenty examples of like regular people without nukes and F-15s taking on the government and doing a pretty damn good job, so I mean, God, the Viet Cong, like, wasn't it like, guerrilla farmers and stuff and like, pits with like punji sticks in them and stuff. I mean, I know that there was a lot more to it than that, but like, come on. And his whole thing, he totally butchers that saying about the Tree of Liberty. He's like, well, the Tree of Liberty isn't like watered by the blood of patriots. Yes, Joe Biden, because that is not the saying. The saying is that it is watered by the blood of tyrants. And a lot of the stuff you're doing is really suggesting that you're a tyrant. So maybe that's why, maybe we're giving him less credit where credit is due, and he like botched that part on purpose to like make a point. Either way, it definitely sounds like a passive-aggressive threat against U.S. gun owners and the American people that, yeah, if you don't follow our gun control laws and if you ever do rise up against the government, we're going to nuke you and drop bombs on you with F-15s. Which really echoes some statements made by Eric Swalwell back in 2018 on Twitter, where he got a lot of flack for. And, I really would like to point out the left. Sometimes you see them cheering this stuff of being like, oh yeah, and this is why, why gun owners could never take on the government because, they don't have nukes and they don't have F-15s. They only have AR-15s, which simultaneously they claim are weapons of war, but also not strong enough to take on the U.S. government. I digress. They're like, oh yeah, we'll Joe Biden will drop some nukes on them, or Eric Swalwell will drop some nukes on the gun owners, ha 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 ha, and that's why they can't take on the government. Do these people think that nukes are like precision? I can't even say it. Precision drone strikes that are just like gonna be dropped on like a single family home and that's it? Nah, bitch. If you're calling for nukes of gun owners and you are anywhere within, I don't even know how many miles radius, depending on the size of the bomb, bitch, you're getting nuked too. It's not just going to be your gun owner neighbor down the street that you call the cops on, or like, Joe Schmo down at the grocery store that wears his Second Amendment t-shirts, or like, some family member that you don't like on Twitter or on Facebook. You're going to be in that blast zone. Unless you have a bomb shelter in your basement, you are going to be hit with that radioactive fallout. What do you think dropping a nuke on gun owners is going to do? Realistically, like, that is so stupid. So stupid. It shows once again, over and over again, that these people don't know anything. And Joe Biden clearly either doesn't know or understand the history of this country, or is just flat out comfortable making thinly veiled threats against innocent American citizens. And then the question remains, like, well, okay, are you gonna find those military members to drop those nukes and fly those F-15s? I mean, I guess the question is maybe, because they're trying to root out all the conservatives, right? And get rid of people even that are seen to have supported the NRA from the armed forces. That's the whole thing that came out of January 6th. So who knows? I mean, maybe they're doing that they say that it's to protect Biden, but maybe Biden in his crazy, senile, addled brain is like, well, we might actually have to drop some nukes on these gun owners, corn pop. So we better make sure that we have an army of liberals. I mean, who knows? But like, ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Oh my goodness. Robert Chappelle says that every time Biden says that a retired Vietnamese rice farmer somewhere smiles. Indeed, right? Like, and Drop the Hammer says that nukes have been tested on American soil since the 50s. Yeah. Tested, and there's definitely some people that had some pretty gnarly health effects after that. So, I mean, again, like, we're not talking about a test where you're dropping it in the middle of the desert and having some army guys stand around to see what happens and what health effects they have after the point. Like, if he's like talking about like, dropping nukes on some gun owners in New York State or something, or, I mean, hell, he'd have to take out pretty much the whole state of South Carolina. I've seen a few people around here with Biden stickers on their cars. Like, do they think that they would be immune to a fiery mushroom cloud? Do they think that they would be immune to the clouds of radioactive particles that would spread across the land? Come on. Come on, man, as Joe Biden would say. So that's the little press conference to go along with this little tidbit. This fact sheet that was released from whitehouse.gov. Fact sheet: Biden-Harris administration announces comprehensive strategy to prevent and respond to gun crime and ensure public safety with nukes. Oh my goodness. So, according to this riveting reading material, President Biden believes that the surge in gun violence that has affected communities across the country over the last year and a half is unacceptable, and his administration is moving decisively to act with a whole of government approach as we enter the summer months when cities typically experience a spike in violence. Anytime the government says anything about a whole of government approach, you better fasten your seatbelts and hold on to your pants because things are going to get crazy. I mean, we already had a White House official come out a couple weeks ago talking about how they were going to have all these new programs they were going to put into place so that you could rat on your friends and family members and neighbors if you thought they were too radicalized. And they're going to utilize big tech and social media in the fight against domestic terrorism. So already we've got some pretty shady stuff going on. And by the way, Remember when Edward Snowden came out and talked about all these crazy things the NSA were doing, in trying to fight radical people, quote unquote radical people. And remember how enraged people were and how it was a really big deal? But now we had January 6th and all of a sudden, we need this. We need to have the U.S. government spying on citizens. And we need to have all of these SS-style tip lines and all of that. We need to do those things to protect America from domestic terrorists. And by the way, Joe Biden thinks that every gun owner and everyone from NRA members to members of the Libertarian Party are domestic terrorists or potential domestic terrorists. Remember, he said that he was coming after all of these people earlier in the year. Remember, we did a video on that. We talked about it on the stream. The U.S. government is coming for you if you are a conservative, if you are an NRA member, if you are a libertarian, any of these things, because you are seen as a potential domestic terrorist, especially if you voted for Trump. And now, on top of that, and all of these new cute little programs that they're designing and putting into place, we're having a whole of government approach to stop crime and gun violence, quote unquote. So today, which was, I believe, Tuesday, the Biden administration announced a comprehensive strategy to combat gun violence and other violent crime. From here on out, I'm going to just say violent crime because the whole gun violence buzzword is stupid. And honestly, I use it when I am reading these things and I am using their own words. And there's always people that complain about it. So we'll just say violent crime in place of it. This strategy implements preventative measures that are proven to reduce violent crime and attacks the root causes, including by addressing the flow of firearms used to commit crimes. Unless, Joe Biden, you are standing on the street corner and stopping people from rolling up and meeting someone who knows a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy, you are not going to stop the flow of illegal firearms or firearms used to cause crimes unless you stop doing ridiculous crap like sending firearms to drug cartels. You're not going to stop the flow of firearms. And honestly, I really question. First of all, they can't figure out the root causes of violent crime. And I mean, how about we had all of these catch and release programs during COVID because they were like, oh, well, it's too dangerous to have people in the prisons, and they let a whole bunch of prisoners out, and that is a whole other issue. But now they're like, there was a skyrocket in violent crime. Well, maybe it's because A, you put everyone in lockdown and pissed them off. B, you completely, well, the federal government did not, but the state governments made their economies slow to a grinding halt, and so no one could make money. Tons of people lost their jobs. There was huge unemployment. People couldn't pay their bills. What is one of the driving factors of crime? Poverty. Oh, and look at that. State governments across the country ensured that their citizens would fall into poverty. And then you let people out of jail, including, in some states, child predators, because it was too dangerous for them to be in prison because COVID. Then you told everyone that they needed to wear masks so they felt anonymous and emboldened to do more stupid, crazy shit because they were allowed to wear masks everywhere. And then you say, well, I wonder why we had a rise in violent crime. And then right in the middle of this rise of violent crime, we had defund the police and get rid of police departments. And we have talked before about my thoughts on such things on this channel. We talked about it last week. Regardless of my thoughts, if you have a crime spike in an area and then you make the police not want to do their job, or you make it impossible for them to do their job, what do you think is going to happen? It is not law-abiding, legal gun owners that are contributing to this wave of crime. It is, quite frankly, Democratic policies across the board. But anyways, so his strategy will use the rescue plans, historic funding levels, and clear guidance to help state, local, territorial, and tribal governments get the money they need to put more police officers on the beat. Well, imagine that. BLM must be very upset if they are reading this press release and checking out Biden's plan. His budget to fund police departments, by the way, pretty much doubled from the Trump years and the years before. Mr. Support the BLM, we need police reform, blah, blah, blah. Joe Biden is calling for more police officers and doubling the budgets to make sure there are more police officers on the streets. And again, like, what's going to happen is, we'll get to it in a minute, but it's going to trickle down, and it's really going to affect law-abiding gun owners and gun control, and it's getting spicy. So Joe Biden says that he's going to provide more money and more guidance for the resources, training, and accountability that police officers need to engage in effective community policing. In addition to supporting proven community violence intervention programs, summer employment opportunities, and other investments that we know will reduce crime and make our neighborhoods safer. How about you start with, for example, checking out that black site in New York with the New York Police Department? How about we check out that black site in Chicago with the Chicago Police Department? That's pretty shady. Maybe that's something that should be looked at and investigated. No, he's just gonna, this is fluffy virtue signaling. And while I will say that having job training and employment opportunities for people in impoverished areas, or people who have been to prison for like petty crimes, and giving them opportunities, or I'm not going to say giving them opportunities, having opportunities that they could take advantage of to get out of that lifestyle, is definitely a proven technique, and it can do a lot of good. The government cannot provide employment opportunities. The government does not create jobs. It is the economy that creates jobs. And Joe Biden has steadily been tanking the economy. So that's another reason why this little fluffy thing of his virtue signaling is not going to work. He also says the strategy will also address the direct link between gun violence and the rise in violent crime by taking immediate steps to keep guns out of the wrong hands, including by strengthening the ATF's efforts to stem the flow of firearms used in crimes. AKA, he's like, please elect David Chipman. And by launching multi-jurisdictional firearms trafficking strike forces to stop illegal gun trafficking across state lines. So first off, violent crime, for the most part, is usually traced back to gang violence and drugs. We already have a war on drugs, and it's going swimmingly. And did nothing. And then we still have places like Chicago, and we still have this huge increase in violent crime across the board. Putting someone like David Chipman at the head of the ATF, that ain't it. That's not going to do it. You know, making new rules around so-called assault weapons isn't going to do crap to stop what's happening in Chicago and New York and LA and Baltimore and all of these places right now. That's not, you and I know that already. We know the statistics, but I mean, when he's talking about strengthening the ATF, it's stuff like that. So he claims, or the administration claims, that altogether, the quote-unquote comprehensive strategy will stem the flow of firearms used to commit violence, including by holding rogue firearms dealers accountable for violating federal laws. See, that's that rogue firearms dealers thing again. And it's also worth noting here, there are federal laws and there are state laws and state ways of doing things. Perfect example, we are seeing in Missouri the Firearms Preservation Act and how the Biden administration is kind of battling over it with the Missouri government right now and saying that things like the Second Amendment Preservation Act violate and nullify federal law, when that is not quite the case. Constitution supersedes federal law, the rights given in the Constitution. So the Second Amendment supersedes federal law. And if something violates the Second Amendment, it is unconstitutional. It's interesting that they're really only going after Missouri when there are, a few other states that have similar laws and have Second Amendment Preservation Acts. And there's also Second Amendment Preservation counties. Some of them are only resolutions. Some of them, like my county, do carry the weight of county ordinance, which means they are law. Another example here in South Carolina, the background check only goes back. They only consider felonies that were committed within the last 10 years. So if you are a felon, but you've had a clean record for 15 years, well, you can legally own a firearm in the state of South Carolina. That's technically against federal law, isn't it? I don't know. It's definitely against some of the other state laws. So, I mean, there's definitely some questions here around what they consider violating federal law, because there are cases where maybe it violates federal law, but not state law. Anyways, as Robin said, there's only been 12 prosecutions, despite the Biden claiming that they've found all of these rogue gun dealers and that background checks have stopped 3 million bad people from getting guns. As a quick aside, I see that Jesse Meek says that David Chipman did not pass the congressional vote. I think it goes to a floor vote now. I watched the whole torturous crap fest live with Jared. I did see that the Senate Judiciary Committee were split down the middle, 11-11, so it does go to a floor vote now. If there is another 50-50 split, then the decision ultimately goes to Kamala Harris, which is great. But I believe if all Republicans stick to their party lines and we get one Democrat that votes no, then no Chipman. But we shall see. We shall see. Anyway, so Biden also claims that the plan will support local law enforcement with federal tools and resources to help address summer violent crime, invest in evidence-based violence in community violence interventions. I mean, they always say that. All these places say they're going to do that and like never do it. Also, they are going to expand summer programming, employment opportunities, and other services and supports for teenagers and young adults, and help formerly incarcerated individuals successfully re-enter their communities. Honestly, this would be, if they actually did it and did it properly, the most important plank of this entire platform, quite frankly. As someone who worked in mental health, specifically with the criminologic population for quite some time, you get these people that are institutionalized. And I don't mean institutionalized like sent to the mental hospital. I mean people that like went to juvie or jail for the first time when they were like 15 and didn't graduate high school and didn't get job skills. And so they don't know how to do anything else except for criminal crap to make ends meet and, support their families or, put food on the table, whatever. And so they keep falling back into those patterns. It's really similar to drug addiction, actually, in they don't know any other way. Drug addicts don't know any other way to cope. Well, these guys that are in and out of prison all the time, they don't know any other way to live. And you also, with the addicts, it also is widely influenced by the people they surround themselves with. Who do you think criminals surround themselves with? Other criminals, right? They're not gonna be BFFs with like Joe Upstanding Citizen. No, like their friends are going to be other criminals who are going to influence them to do criminal crap. And I mean, they don't have, they have bad records, so it's hard for them to get jobs. They don't have job skills, a lot of them. Some of them don't even have high school educations. So, I mean, things like, having GED programs for these guys, job skills trainings for these guys. I mean, some places do have things like Massachusetts had something called Labor Ready, where it was like day labor, and the guys on probation and parole and the felons and everything could show up and try to get a job for that day. And, Labor Ready buses them out to the job site and they do the thing and they come back. They get paid crap. They have to be there at like 5 a.m. And just because they show up, there's no guarantee that they'll get a job that day. I mean, that's something. It's not ideal, but it's something. But again, all of this is stuff that really like the government can't do. This is stuff that like communities have to do and nonprofits have to do and like churches and whatever. Like the federal government isn't going to be like, well, yes, let's institute all these community programs in all of these crime-infested communities and work with at-risk populations. They're not going to do that. You know who was doing that in Massachusetts? It was nonprofits. It was like the nonprofit mental health agencies and stuff that I was working for, and like their community support partners that would go out and like pick up some of these guys at like the homeless shelters or wherever they were, and like drop them off at these programs in the morning to try to help get them work. It was, these caseworkers and stuff that were trying to find the programs, which 9 times out of 10 were again from nonprofits and churches and stuff, and try to get them these skills. This kind of stuff isn't federal programs. I'm sorry, I'm ending up spending way more time on this specifically than I thought that I would, but there's just so much wrong with this presser. So they say now is the time to act with the secondary consequences of the pandemic and the proliferation of illegal guns over the same period. Really? I mean, there's been a proliferation of legal guns. But okay. He says, we have seen increased violence over the past year and a half. Again, he is attributing this, the Biden administration as a whole is attributing this to gun owners, not to all of the factors that I mentioned when we first started looking at this lovely statement. Homicides rose 30%. Gun assaults rose 8% in large cities in 2020. The number of homicides in the first quarter of 2021 was 24% higher than the number of homicides in the first quarter of 2020. Yeah, pre-COVID. And 49% higher than in any first quarter of 2019. Black and brown Americans are disproportionately harmed by the direct and indirect consequences of gun violence. This is also something that we've talked about, for better or for worse. This is not a statement about, quote unquote, black and brown people, but they are more likely to experience poverty. So they are more likely to be in these communities that have poverty, which means they're more likely to be in these communities that are affected by high rates of crime, because poverty is your number one factor in crime. You don't see so much crime in these hoity-toity rich neighborhoods where like everyone is employed and everyone has education and everyone has money and there's not gangs and drug rings operating there. You see it in the inner cities where people are struggling for resources and there's, gangs forming these sense of communities for these young kids that have nothing else to do and are growing up in broken homes. And there's so much that goes into it. Guns are not the cause of this. Again, it is poverty, it is gangs, it is the war on drugs, it is all of this stuff. And to say that, people that are black and brown are disproportionately harmed by this and flank it with the veil of racism, which is what Joe Biden likes to do. It's not racism. It's just, an unfortunate fallout of years of crappy government policy that put people in that position, quite frankly. As the president has repeatedly said, we are experiencing an epidemic of gun violence in this country. The violence robs us of loved ones and causes life-altering physical injuries. It causes lasting trauma with cascading consequences for children, families, and communities. It steals our freedom, our sense of belonging and security, and has ripple effects for our economy. And yet Chicago is one of the places with the highest rates of crime, and Lori Lightfoot is more focused on what color journalists to give interviews to. The president continues to call on Congress to take action to end this violence epidemic, but he knows we cannot afford to wait a single day while lives are being taken, which is why he has already announced a set of initial actions to prevent this violence, including toughening regulations on ghost guns and moving historically quickly to nominate a permanent ATF director. Yes, the most horrible pick in the entire world that he could have tried, in addition to the steps announced today as part of this strategy. I mean, honestly, it is not constitutional. It would be a horrible thing to do. It would be a tyrannical thing to do. It would be possibly the match to the gunpowder that has become America. But I mean, if he really was saying that this is the worst thing in the world and something absolutely has to be done, he would be trying to do some of this with executive order. Which, again, would be horrible, unconstitutional, tyrannical. It would be fought. It would be possibly the start of the pig roasting igloo. But I mean, to me, that says, he's not doing those things, which is good. But I mean, it says that he knows. This is virtue signaling. It's just, expanding government for the sake of expanding government under the guise of doing something when it's not really doing anything except for trying to stop the legally armed populace. All right, so he says that they're going to establish zero tolerance for rogue gun dealers that will willfully violate the law. We already talked about the problem with this. If the ATF were to solidify their recommendations, guidelines, whatever that they put out around SBRs and stabilizing braces, for example, that would definitely be something where, you know, you might have some quote unquote rogue gun dealers that violate federal law, but like he and his administration are trying to put in so many laws that it would completely slow down or attempt to stop legal gun ownership. Where there's a will, there's a way, and people will always find a way around it. But I mean, especially with a law like, you know, we looked at the SBR thing, and you're basically playing bingo, and you need like a flow chart to figure out how many points you have to see if you actually have an SBR. Like, they're trying to make it impossible for people to actually follow the law by making the law so complicated that people either just give up or like accidentally violate it. Like, that's who would be caught up in this, zero tolerance for rogue gun dealers thing. So they're going to try to revoke the licenses of dealers the first time that they violate federal law by willfully transferring a firearm to a prohibited person, failing to run a required background check, falsifying records, failing to respond to an ATF tracing request, or refusing to permit ATF to conduct an inspection in violation of the law. Well, that is interesting. Now, I know that technically FFLs have to keep their records on site and they have to give access to the ATF to those records. But like, say that the ATF or the Biden administration said, okay, we have a registry now, and FFLs are like, hell no. Well, then the Biden administration and the ATF would try to revoke their license. It's really, you know, making sure that people are scared to not follow every little bit of federal gun legislation. Or what if, the ATF comes in and illegally seizes records? Well, if the FFL tries to fight that, is the ATF going to say, oh, well, now you have your license revoked? These are questions that need to be asked. Let's see. They're going to maximize the efficacy of ATF resources to crack down on rogue gun dealers violating the laws, which will include better coordination with state and local officials with on-the-ground knowledge of which dealers are supplying firearms that show up at crime scenes. See, this is some load of crap, too. Because remember, a while back, I did this video about debunking the now this gun control. And one of the things that they talked about was, all of these guns that are used in crimes in Chicago come from these Cabela's over the border. But if you actually look at like the studies and articles that they quoted, it's something like 3%. And most of those guns had the initial sale to the legal person and were sold to someone else, which were sold to someone else, which were sold to someone else, and then were stolen. So if you follow that train are they going to follow that train all the way back and say, well, Cabela's, you have to have your FFL revoked because you sold a gun to someone who sold a gun, who sold a gun, who sold a gun, that then got their gun stolen and then it was used in a crime? Like, come on. Also, they will formalize the use of data-driven prioritization of inspection sources starting today. The ATF will make clear to investigators in every field division through training and guidance that when identifying inspection priorities, they must consider a number of factors related to public safety. Oh boy, oh boy. And they're going to equip states that have their own gun dealer licensing systems with data from ATF inspections. Fun, fun. They're going to launch multi-jurisdictional firearms trafficking strike forces. I wonder if this is where they're going to use their nukes. Oh, man. And these are supposedly going to be launched within the next 30 days. So these are 5 new law enforcement strike forces to address arms trafficking to New York, Chicago, LA, the Bay Area, and Washington, D.C. That's kind of funny. And the DAs of these areas are going to coordinate with that. That's fun stuff. They're going to provide the public with additional data to promote transparency and accountability in enforcement of federally licensed firearms dealer policies. Yeah. The ATF being transparent. Okay. They're going to go after ghost guns some more because, you know, that's totally a thing that exists. They're like, oh, homemade guns are increasingly ending up at crime scenes. Yeah. Okay. They're going to use this to try to go after like 3D printed guns too, which are like a couple of shots and then break. Just watch. They're going to convene state legislators and attorney generals regarding policy strategies to hold gun dealers and manufacturers accountable for their contribution to the flow of crime guns. So they're going to try to go after gun manufacturers now. That's just excellent. And of course, they're urging the Senate to ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines and pass the 3 House-passed bipartisan pieces of legislation, which would strengthen our gun background check system. Well, you know what, Senate? You better not. I'm just going to put that out there. You better not. So they're going to give more money to law enforcement. They're going to get the FBI involved, which is fun stuff. The ATF. The ATF is embedding with local homicide units. Cool. So, cool. There's going to, you know, your local homicide unit is going to have their very own ATF agent. That sounds great. The DEA is getting involved in this because, you know, the war on drugs is going so great. The United States Marshal Service as well is going to coordinate in this. And they're going to conduct fugitive sweeps throughout the country, focusing on individuals subject to state or local warrants. So you could have somebody in your local community with a warrant and a U.S. Marshal is going to show up. How much is this going to cost? Oh, my good. Oh, and here, well, the Treasury Department part is right here. And they're going to use, the Treasury Department says that communities experiencing a surge in gun violence as a result of the pandemic, as a result of the pandemic and the Democratic policies that made it even worse and tanked the economy. See, they're saying it right there. Biden says that it's, you know, because of gun owners and gun violence, but right here, as a result of the pandemic, may use the American Rescue Plan's $350 billion in state and local funding for purposes such as hiring more law enforcement even above pre-pandemic levels. BLM Joe Biden is giving out $350 billion to places so they can have even more cops than they had pre-COVID. Additional enforcement efforts to reduce violence exacerbated by the pandemic. See, again, there we go. Exacerbated by the pandemic. But, oh, it's the rogue dealers. Yeah, okay. And investing in technology and equipment that allow law enforcement to more efficiently and effectively respond to the rise in violence. Again, resulting from the pandemic. Most people aren't going to read this far to see that, and they're not even going to think about it. They're saying that any community can use it and local aid for the above strategies. And then here's some more money, another $276 billion in a grant program. They're now accepting applications for that, for crime prevention and law enforcement and prosecution. Drug treatment, okay. And enforcement. Let's see. They're gonna and here's way at the, you know, the bottom of this list. They're community-based violence interventions. Let's Let's see. So it says that these programs have been shown to reduce violence as much as 60%. But, oh yeah, so this funding can also be used for these programs after they hire all of their additional law enforcement, all of this stuff, anything that's left, well, they can use for these community programs if they want. You know, excuse me, that's going to be the bottom of the list. The Department of Education is also going to say that 122 billion of that program can be used for these strategies. And today, the president is announcing that the administration will convene and support a CVI collaborative of 15 jurisdictions, which include Atlanta, Austin, Baltimore, Baton Rouge, Chicago, Detroit, King County, LA, Memphis, Minneapolis, and St. Paul, Newark, Philly, Rapid City, St. Louis, and Washington, D.C. It's kind of funny that where the government sits is one of the most crime-ridden areas in the entire country, and it is small, it is teeny tiny, and yet lots and lots of awful things happen there. Let's see. Expanding summer programming. Talks about it some more. Youth workforce development funds. I mean, see, this would probably do way more than any of these other ATF law enforcement stuff that he's pushing. And look at this is the tiny paragraph that, you know, helping formerly incarcerated individuals re-enter society. It gets one tiny paragraph that doesn't even have any numbers in it. And no money, no dollar signs. It's just hanging out as a little virtue signal of fluff there. Ban the box policy. Oh, this is interesting. Prohibits federal employers and federal contractors in all three branches of government from inquiring into arrest and conviction history until they've made a conditional job offer. Federal government is like definitely the top place that you should be checking for felons. That is so ridiculous. So ridiculous. Oh my God. So they don't care. Oh my God. Oh my God. That is just so insane. So insane. The one place that we really should be checking this stuff. I mean, private employers and stuff should be checking this too. But like the number one place where you probably don't want criminals because it's already full of criminals. And you're like, hey, we're not going to check if you're a criminal. What? That is insane. Oh my God, this is way worse than I thought it was. They're going to give people tax credits to hire formerly incarcerated individuals. Okay. I mean, that's something, I guess. Addressing the housing needs of returning citizens. See, this is another thing the government shouldn't be doing. That should be like nonprofits and churches and things like Salvation Army. And that's it. That is his plan that is supposedly going to stop gun violence. Yeah. Okay. Okay, Sparky. Whatever you say. I know I went on a long rant with that one, so we'll go in and we'll check the super chats. And let me close these windows here so I know which things we've talked about here. Let's see. So, all right. Wow, we're going way back here. Let's see. So Jesse Meek said, LOL, we only had a small amount of time to chat, and I've had a really long life. 6 years active Marine, 13 years as a cop, over 26 years, 2 undercover, and 5 years with the Federal Protective Service. You better not be a narc, Jesse. I know you're not. I'm just making a joke. 16 years as EMT and lifelong martial artist. Lots of overlap. No, I know Jesse's not a narc. I've heard about his toys. Indiana Tony says, I got here late and have to catch up, but I live near Old Town. I was a block away from the shooting site the day before it happened. Scary stuff. That is scary. Demon117, thank you for the super sticker. Rose Blight says, Battle of Athens, civilians went against corrupt U.S. city government and won. Well, and even just look at the damage we mentioned a few weeks ago, the damage that Marvin Heemeyer did with a bulldozer. I mean, granted, that was, city official property and stuff like that, but I mean, he made a pretty good dent with a bulldozer. Like, come on. Smitty Smith says, I went to my local gun store today looking for an F-15, but they had just sold the last one before I got there. Oh, too bad. That's very sad. Omega says that War of 1812, Detroit was captured by the British. The U.S. regulars couldn't do anything. However, the Brits were pushed out of Detroit by armed civilians. See, another case in point. Mark Fallow says that they do have tactical precision. I can't say that word today. He says that they do have tactical precision nukes, 12 Echoes. I mean, but still, is that just going to take out one person or one house in a densely populated neighborhood? I don't know. I'd have to do some research, but I doubt it. There used to be this website, and this is terrible, and I'm surprised that the NSA or the feds did not just come knocking on my door after this, but there is this website. It used to exist. I used it in the past to do research for a story that I was writing, where you could select the bomb type from a drop-down list and select a city or click on a point in the U.S. map and see how big the blast radius would be and how big the resulting radiation cloud would be and how far the radiation would travel. I am sure that website has since been taken down, but I thought it was pretty neat. It was pretty educational. I don't remember 12 Echoes being on the list, but it was a few years back, so we'll see. Deuce Zod, thank you for the winky face sticker. Torque1 says, all I know is O'Biden better strap on his best nuke-carrying F-15 when he comes over to try and get my weapons. Q asks, do we have mini nukes yet? Fallout is not yet real, which is a good thing, so no. Pickle Jars for Hillary says, Seki says, reps wanted to defund the police. LOL. Yeah, okay. Well, Biden clearly does not. Robin says, do I have to go through a background check to buy an F-15 and a nuke? I'll only use it once. Joe User says, next version of Fallout will be Fallout 5 Green Vegas. I actually got really excited the other day because I saw a trailer for Fallout London, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. It turns out it's just a mod. I thought it was a whole game. I was really disappointed. Mark Fallow says, Robin, it's on Amazon Prime. No background check. Don't say that because the stupid anti-gun liberals will read that and think that it's true. I mean, they already practically believe that. Leadpilled 556 says, HR told me I have to remove my Gadsden flag and 2A sticker. Wow. Ordered a personalized plate from DMV today. Huns ammo, state issued. Nice. Let's see HR go after that, right? Let's see. Jameson Wilfon says, when will old Joe let Hunter get spanked for lying on a 4473? So pretty much all the government little organizations and alphabet agencies and Secret Service and all of that have come out and said that they know nothing about it and that they weren't involved. Clearly someone was involved. None of your business. Thank you for the super chat. Jameson also said, I could be confirmed before the Chipmunk and do I could be confirmed before the Chipmunk and do a hell of a lot better job, right? I mean, lots of people could. Jesse says, if any of you ever find one of those vile, irreprehensible rogue gun dealers, tell them to move to Kansas and give them my number. Torque says there's no such thing as a rogue FFL. This is just horse poo-poo to justify blocking more gun sales, going after manufacturers, and creating a registry. 100% correct. You are correct. I mean, the hoops that FFLs have to jump through, and like they have to be open to ATF inspection like pretty much any time. Like, there's no rogue FFLs out there. Dude on the street corner that says, hey, come back to this alley, and pops open his trunk and it's full of guns is not an FFL, Joe Biden. Q says, still not sure if ghost guns are for shooting ghosts or if they fire ghosts as ammunition. Where do you even buy that ammo? I don't know, but maybe they could make like a Ghostbusters movie about it or something. Oh, goodness. And let's see. Torque One says, now you know why DC is where all the criminal masterminds are. Indeed. Indeed. And Leonidas Alberia says, using a bunch of nukes on America would be like using an elephant gun to shoot doves. Right? Like... Walter Gura, I see above, says, always think safety first when reloading nukes. Don't toss the grenade uphill, says Hugh Galbraith. And P7 2017 says, that's why they want the military woke. Exactly. I think that you are correct, sir. Let's see. All right. So we already went over the fact checking of Biden's stupid thing. We went over how you can, in fact, own cannons. And let's see how he is refunding the police department. We hit that. Let's see. Oh, yes, there is a constitutional carry that passed in Louisiana. Unfortunately, the governor vetoed it. Here we go. Louisiana Governor John Bel Edwards vetoes constitutional carry bill. It's not really unexpected. Folks expected that he would veto it. It's just really disappointing because it's proof that, like, you know, the legislature and the constituents want something, and the governor is just like, nah, I'm not going to do it. You know, so clearly we have a case of an elected official not following through on what the residents and citizens and his populace wants. If this bill got all the way through both branches of state government to his desk and he vetoed it. No one expected Louisiana Governor John Bel Edwards to sign the constitutional carry bill that's been sitting on his desk. This is according to the Truth About Guns. The people who watch these things in the sportsman paradise know that Edwards wants to be a senator from Louisiana someday, and that's why some people speculated he would sign the bill or let the bill come into law without his signature, as it would have done today if he had done nothing. And this was from today. So, no such luck. He vetoed the bill, and he's happy with the current system of government-issued carry permits and training mandates. He previously said, I have a history as a legislator of voting against bills that would do away with the permit that is now necessary in order to have a concealed weapon. I think it strikes the right balance to make sure that individuals go through that background check, that they have training on safety and on marksmanship. I mean, it ensures training, but like, even if you have constitutional carry, you still have to go through a background check. Like, that doesn't just magically disappear. Well, I mean, I guess in South Carolina, if you have a carry permit, you don't have to go through a background check anymore because it's assumed you passed the background check to get the carry permit. But if you have constitutional carry, you're still going to have to go through a background check with every purchase. Like, that doesn't just disappear suddenly See, this is another idiot who doesn't understand the law and how gun sales work. Man. So the legislature can still override it. And the constitutional carry bill passed by overwhelming majorities in both houses, more than enough to override the veto, but the legislative session has ended. So it sounds like he waited until the last minute to make sure that there could not be an override after he vetoed it. An override session is automatically teed up in Louisiana once the governor vetoes legislation, but it can be scrapped with majority written vote of lawmakers in either the House or Senate. Never before in Louisiana's history have lawmakers returned to Baton Rouge after adjournment to overturn a governor's veto. So they're going to have to see if they decide to interrupt their little vacation to go back on the job to override the veto. My guess is probably not, but I don't know the legislature in Louisiana. So we have that. We also have constitutional carry is advancing in Pennsylvania. I don't think that that will go very far, frankly, but we'll see. Pennsylvania's effort to join 21 other states with constitutional carry advanced as the Senate Judiciary Committee, chaired by Senator Lisa Baker, voted to move Senate Bill 565 to the Senate floor for consideration. And then it talks about what constitutional carry is and blah, 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 the NRA, because this is an NRA presser. But the constitutional carry bill is going to the Senate floor in Pennsylvania. I kind of feel like if it's not happening in South Carolina right now, it's probably not going to happen in Pennsylvania. That is just my guess. So here is the article that mentions how I said the Senate Judiciary Committee did an 11-11 party line vote on Chipman. And so this was on Thursday. They deadlocked on its vote on whether or not Chipman would head up the ATF. So it is going to go to the floor. And of course, if Dianne Feinstein says that Chipman is the leader that the ATF needs. Of course, if there is a split again on the floor vote, like I mentioned before, then it will come down to Kamala Harris, which let's hope that that does not happen because we can guess how she will vote in that situation. And we also have 48 GOP senators have demanded that the ATF withdraw its proposed ban on pistol braces. This was a presser from Gun Owners of America that was reposted over on The Truth About Guns. 48 senators are demanding in a letter that the ATF withdraw its proposed rule to ban stabilizing pistol braces, a move that the Congressional Research Service reported could affect roughly 40 million firearms and turn millions of gun owners into felons. The letter states, the ATF seems to believe that recharacterizing millions of pistols as SBRs is no big deal because the agency kindly offers gun owners what it deems to be plenty of means of complying. Missing from ATF's reasoning, of course, is that even in its very own conservative estimate, ATF requires many months to process the registration forms for SBRs. Thus, gun owners will have to give up the use of their firearms for months while waiting for ATF to process their registration forms and tax payments. I would argue that that's the plan and not a bug here. And the letter concludes that the proposed rule is plain wrong. It is worse than merely abdicating your responsibility to protect Americans from criminals. You're threatening to turn law-abiding Americans into criminals by imposing the largest executive branch-initiated gun registration and confiscation program in American history. We urge you to turn back, correct this mistake, and withdraw the proposed rule. And the two Republican senators who did not sign the letter were Rob Portman of Ohio and Susan Collins of Maine. That's it. All the other Republican senators signed the letter and sent it on its way. We also have the Ninth Circuit and bank panel, I think that's how it's pronounced. Here's challenge to ban on standard capacity magazines. And this is from the 23rd. So an 11-judge panel sitting en banc heard oral arguments in Duncan v. Bonta, formerly Duncan v. Becerra, the CRPA lawsuit, which challenges California's flat ban on magazines capable of holding more than 10 rounds of ammunition, was the first successful constitutional challenge to bans on so-called large-capacity magazines in the country. But unfortunately, the panel is likely unfriendly, composed of 7 judges appointed by Democrats and just 4 appointed by Republicans. So that possible victory is really precarious. A 3-judge panel of the Ninth Circuit held in August 2020 that California's ban on standard capacity magazines is unconstitutional. That decision struck down California's statewide prohibitions on both possessing and acquiring such magazines, and in doing so upheld a 2019 decision from the U.S. District Court in San Diego. The decision sparked what we have all come to know as Freedom Week, during which California gun owners lawfully purchased hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of magazines. And I believe Magpul was one of the companies that just went and dumped boxes of magazines in California, which is really awesome. But unfortunately, there was an appeal, and the decision was vacated in light of the Ninth Circuit's decision to rehear the case. So they did the oral arguments yesterday. The video is apparently no longer able to be viewed. So now they are waiting for a decision on that. Says that the decision could come at any time, but it could be held up in light of New York Rifle and Pistol Association v. Corlett, which the Supreme Court recently agreed to hear and could have a significant impact on Duncan. But no matter what happens, the CRPA is poised to continue its fight against California's unconstitutional ban on commonly possessed magazines. And there is another court case going on as well. This one involves GOA, Gun Owners Action League. 6 circuits grants DOJ and bank rehearing in GOA's bump stock case. So this one is reported on AmmoLand. The United States Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals has granted an en banc hearing of Gun Owners of America v. Garland. GOA-backed lawsuit deals with the ATF banning bump stocks through changing the definition of a machine gun. And GOA honestly does really great work, and they are one of the organizations that I would recommend joining. Most bump stock cases primarily focus on the Second Amendment issue, but this case's primary focus is the ATF's use of Chevron deference to create new laws through regulation instead of going through Congress. The courts seem keener on tackling Chevron deference than taking on Second Amendment issues. The Chevron deference dates to 1984 in Chevron USA Inc. v. Natural Resources Defense Council. The United States Supreme Court set a legal test to determine whether to grant deference to a government agency's interpretation of a statute. The test consists of 2 parts. The first is whether the agency's answer is based on a permissible construction of the statute. The second is that Congress has not dealt with the exact issue in question. So GOA argues that Chevron deference can be applied only to administrative law, and they further state that since the definition of a machine gun is criminal law, that distinction means that the ATF cannot use Chevron deference to redefine a machine gun to include bump stocks. A 3-judge panel agreed with GOA's reasoning, which is a good sign, and ordered the district court to enact an injunction against the ATF's arbitrary ban of the item. So because there is now an en banc rehearing, the panel's decision is vacated, which means the district court will not issue an injunction against the bump stock ban until the full bench hears arguments from both GOA's lawyers and the government lawyers. For all intents and purposes, it is like the 3-judge panel's decision never happened. So, this is something that is currently going on. So there's actually quite a bit of stuff going on in the 2A world, like I said, involving various court cases and things like that. And of course, we have, Joe Biden's announcements, and we have the ATF SBR thing going on, the pistol brace thing going, and of course the nomination for the ATF director going. So there are a lot of things, and oh my goodness, it's 9 o'clock. Holy crap, guys. Yes, also, Gamma Goblin Miller says, join USCCA. Yes, you join USCCA and use my link down in the description. Go check out everything that they have to offer. I am a USCCA member. They have over 500,000 members. Really good stuff. All right, so I guess I didn't even realize it was 9 o'clock. This will be the last one that we do, I guess. So I didn't hit all of the stories today, but I hit about 90% of them. Check this out. State lawmakers want to turn Wisconsin into a Second Amendment sanctuary, even as Joe Biden is going after Missouri, which is beautiful. On Wednesday, the Wisconsin legislature passed a bill that would declare the state a Second Amendment sanctuary in light of President Joe Biden's moves to restrict gun rights. The state Senate approved the bill on Wednesday, sending it to Democratic Governor Tony Evers' desk. The governor is expected to veto the legislation, as he has previously argued for more restrictive gun laws, which is very, very sad. It's another case of the state legislature being on board and the governor doing their own thing, basically. If signed into law and deemed constitutional, the legislation would prevent Wisconsin law enforcement officials from confiscating guns from those convicted of misdemeanor domestic violence offenses, according to nonpartisan lawyers for the legislature. That's because there is no state law that corresponds with a federal law allowing guns to be taken from such offenders. According to the local paper, the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. So this goes on to say how several states have already declared their states to be Second Amendment sanctuaries. Texas did it in April. Last week, 9 members of the Texas's congressional delegation wrote to Abbott, urging him to take action to protect Texans from several planned regulations the Biden administration is drafting to restrict gun rights. I mean, and he did do that little 10th Amendment resolution. Technically speaking, gun control falls under that, but we don't know if that's really what he was thinking when he announced it. I know that South Carolina is working on it, and there are already Second Amendment sanctuary counties. We have a lot of states and counties, and actually, according to AmmoLand here, NPR claimed that there were only 400 Second Amendment sanctuary counties in the country when there are over 1,900, and more are growing. So if we look at this map, all of this green here is county level Second Amendment sanctuary. The purple is both state and county level Second Amendment sanctuary. So, and blue is state level Second Amendment sanctuary. So all of these states are already Second Amendment sanctuaries. And even in these states, we have a bunch of counties. Look at that. Upstate of South Carolina, right there. The only one that's not included is, I don't know if that's Spartanburg area or if that's Pickens. They're kind of purple anyways. But, I mean, look at this. This is, at this point, most of the country. And NPR says there's only 400. But, you know, so all of this is coming while, is this the right article? Whoops, yes. So we have all of these places that are declaring themselves as Second Amendment sanctuaries. And then we have these governors like in Louisiana and Wisconsin that are like, no, we can't have these Second Amendment preservations. And then the article goes into like the ATF's new proposed rules of frame or receiver and FFLs and blah, 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 blah. But it says a number of other governors have signals that they plan to resist Biden administration's efforts to unilaterally enact stricter gun control laws. Earlier this month, Governor Mike Parson promised to fight tooth and nail to protect gun rights. So, lots and lots of stuff going on in the Second Amendment community right now. So, lots of really amazing, wonderful things happening in a time where the administration has said that gun owners in general are domestic terrorists. And NRA members and libertarians and all of these people are domestic terrorists. So it may be that, like Obama, Biden ends up being an excellent gun salesman. All right, so I'm going to grab these last few super chats here. Pickle Jars for Hillary says belt fed is master race. And Jesse Meek says the battle for 2A freedom is a wild forest fire right now. Indeed it is. So much so that I went on for 2 hours about all this stuff and didn't even realize it. Walter Guerra says that the military has lost 2,000 weapons. Whoop. It scrolled away. Oh, I lost it. I lost the comment. But he said that they've lost 2,000 weapons and they've just been marked as missing. And that's it. Let's see. David Neal says, how is the mommy mobile search going? And do you get a growing human handicap for disc golf? No, actually. So, disc golf requires a lot of modification when you're pregnant because of the way that your joints get all loosey-goosey and the way that the muscles stretch and things like that. And actually, my doctors told me I'm not supposed to play right now because of the summer heat and humidity. It's way more humid in Massachusetts than it is here. But your body can't regulate your temperature as much, and you can basically cook your baby. So lots of being careful with disc golf. Yes, Untouched Trey says, last call for super chats. And I just saw someone asked, D. Steiner says, wondering if there will be a nuclear buyback. Oh, my goodness. Gamma Goblin Miller also points out, and this is a really good point, that USCCA shows all state laws very helpful. It is. And actually, I believe they have an app that you don't even have to be a member to use. And it'll give you a map, and you can click on it and see all the individual state gun laws in those states, which is really cool. It's a really great feature that they have. Blue Lobster asks if I plan on running for president in 2024. Hell no. I'm sorry, that is not a job that I want. And can you imagine the Washington Post and the New York Times and CNN would be absolutely combing going through with a fine-tooth comb all of my live streams, all of my videos, and they'd be clipping all of these things out of context, and it would just, oh man, it would be awful. It would be awful. Mark M says, if Massachusetts is more humid than South Carolina, that's another good reason to leave Mass. It really depends to, like, all of Massachusetts is humid. Here, it's really localized. In my area, I'm in the foothills. There's pretty much always a breeze. And like, I will like look at the weather app for the humidity here versus Massachusetts. And it is always lower here, except for on the days that it's raining. Hank of the Hill says, didn't you hear NPR knows it's true because they made it up? Oh, yes. And Mike Fawbush says there's a reciprocity map. Yes, there is. There is a reciprocity map as well with USCCA. And what's really great too is they also, if you have a membership, you have special access to their training and some of the different classes. And so I actually, before applying for my CWP, which still has not shown up, and SLED has not responded to my email yet, which is a little concerning to me. I know that I should be approved because I had a license in Massachusetts. I don't know if my paperwork got lost somewhere or something happened. But anyways, before I took my qualifier test, I took a couple lessons just to, make sure that everything was kosher, and because I hadn't been able to go shooting in a long time. And it was really awesome. I just went to the USCCA site and put in like my zip code, and it gave me a list of trainers and classes. And there were some really cool classes, like tactical, like defensive stuff and stuff like that. I just went with a basic, a CWP prep course type of thing, and some private lessons, but it was really cool. And Jesse Meek says, super chat just because. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Mark M says, no one escapes from SLED. Supposedly, they're supposed to be really good with responding to emails and checking in on CWP permits. CWP permit, that's redundant. Concealed carry, concealed weapon permit. So I don't really know what's going on. It might be because I moved, but like my husband got his at this address, so I don't know what the dealio is with that. But so yes, if you want a cool Palmetto State Armory shirt, ATF on the front, all the firearms on the back, use the link down in the description to do that. Also go and check out USCCA and any of the other supporting partners that we've got down there. Oh, I just got the notification that the garage door is open. So that means the grill is starting. So that means husband is getting impatient. So everyone, thanks for tuning in. Thank you to all of the folks that sent in super chats. You guys are helping out. You are keeping the channel lights on. Doing really good things. Also, the Patreons that come by in the chat, the patrons from Patreon, and the Subscribe Star folks as well. You guys are amazing and huge. Michael Fuller says, did I set up a registry for the baby? I do have one. It is not fully complete yet. I'm only 16 weeks, so I did start it really early, though. I started it at like 10 weeks. Because I was anxious, and that's how I coped with it, by lots of research. There is a registry. I guess I'll give it to people if they want once I get to that point, but I'm not at that point yet. Yes, thank you to the mods. Thank you to everyone from Subscribestar and Patreon. Thank you everyone for all the super chats, all the people that tune in every week and give the likes and the shares, people that are watching this after the fact. Check out the links down in the description. That helps too. And keep your eyes peeled for a video this weekend. And eventually I'll also be making the official channel-wide, social media-wide announcement once I get more than one video up on the second channel. I have a few other videos recorded, just haven't edited them yet. So everyone, have a good rest of your weekend and good night, and I will see you next week.